At commencements around the country, universities select people to receive honorary degrees who are outstanding leaders and invite them to commencement as role models for our graduates. Honorary degrees are not simply earned by a course of study or even a course of achievement. They are earned by making significant contributions to our society. We've selected one such outstanding role model for your commencement. To introduce our honorary degree recipient and this afternoon's speaker, I would like to ask today's presiding trustee, Stephen Serns, to come forward.
President Frank, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a renowned and respected scholar, prolific writer, and human rights advocate, Jorge Castañeda. Born in Mexico City, Jorge had a global childhood as the son of a career diplomat. His father served as Mexico's foreign minister from 1979 to 1982. His mother, a Polish Jewish refugee, earned her PhD at the age of 24. As one of the architects of Vicente Fox's successful National Action Party candidacy for president in the year 2000, Dr. Castañeda helped end the Institutional Revolutionary Party's 7 decades of one-party rule. He himself would also be appointed foreign minister, and alongside you, he served in the Fox cabinet through 2003. During his tenure, Dr. Castañeda refocused Mexico's foreign policy on human rights and democracy. President Frank, for his long-standing and timely commitment to, as he puts it, translating Latin America to the United States and vice versa, it is my pleasure to present Jorge G. Castañeda for the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
It was in Paris, as a graduate student, where Jorge Castañeda began rethinking some of the common tenets of Latin American leftism. In his acclaimed 1993 book, Utopia Unarmed, he urged Latin America to embrace a pluralistic commitment to democracy and open markets. He has since penned more than a dozen books and countless articles on international politics and diplomacy. Dr. Castañeda joined the New York University faculty in 1997 as Global Distinguished Professor of Politics and Latin American and Caribbean Studies. He has served as a member of the board of Human Rights Watch since 2003 and was elected a foreign honorary member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and an international member of the American Philosophical Society. In 2006, he ran for president of Mexico as an independent, challenging the ban against seeking the office without party backing. His campaign led to changes in law that opened the arena to independent candidates. Jorge Castañeda, for your dedication to the democratic electoral process and to building bridges of understanding between Latin America and the United States, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the trustees of the University of Miami, I hereby confer upon you the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, and declare that your name shall be forever inscribed upon the enduring roll of our university's honorary sons and daughters. Congratulations.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. I would like to thank the Board of Trustees of the University of Miami for bestowing this honor on me, although it is my understanding that the decision to do so was taken by the board before Dr. Julio Frank's appointment as president of this university, I also extend my deepest appreciation to my former colleague in President Vicente Fox's cabinet. I would be amiss if I did not recall and acknowledge here today that Julio and I were perhaps the most liberal members of another otherwise rather conservative group of people, particularly on social issues. We supported each other and became good friends for this, among many additional reasons. Thank you, Julio, for your friendship and support over the past 15 years. I've been visiting Miami now for over a quarter century, and I have seen how the city has grown, changed, and triumphed, on occasion against serious odds. The University of Miami has, of course, evolved with it and is a faithful reflection of the community it springs from and serves. As Miami has changed, so has the U. Today, this city is not only 35% Latino, but it includes a broad variety of foreign-born residents, some with papers, some without. If 30 years ago, people of Cuban, Haitian, and Nicaraguan origin made up a large majority of Miami's roughly 1.5 million Hispanics, today the mosaic is remarkable. Cubans and Nicaraguans, of course, but also Hondurans, Salvadorans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, Peruvians, Mexicans, and even Brazilians and Argentines are present in large numbers. Miami is a Latino community and a Latin American city. So is the University of Miami. 25% of undergraduate students graduating in 2016 are Latino Hispanic. 28% of you, the graduate students, are also. There is no other major American university with similar numbers that is not on the border with Mexico. The University of California campuses in Berkeley, Los Angeles, or San Diego have much smaller percentages of Latino students, as does the University of Texas at Austin. Moreover, Hispanic students at those fine institutions are overwhelmingly of Mexican origin. That's fine with me, but inevitably it's a less diverse student body than the University of Miami's. All of which leads me to a reflection on what your role might be in the coming years as you embark upon your professional life, whether here, elsewhere in the United States, or in Latin America, although I suppose this is also valid if you ship off to Europe, Africa, or Asia. I start with my own experience over the past 4 decades or so as a minor and lonely voice in Latin America and in the United States. If I have accomplished anything useful in my professional career as a public intellectual, a teacher, a government official, and an intemperate pundit, it has been to serve as a bridge between several communities that often speak past each other rather than to each other. Americans of Anglo backgrounds with U.S. residents of Latino heritage. Latin Americans with their U.S. neighbors, friends, and sometimes adversaries. Mexicans with everybody else, and Cubans with themselves. I have been much less successful in this self-designated or self-imposed endeavor than I would have wished. You can achieve much more in a different era and with far greater skills and perseverance. The University of Miami has a natural vocation for becoming, more than it is already, a bridge between the United States and Latin America. It will obviously not be the only one, but it can attain a presence in the hemisphere's higher education, civil society, government, media, and social media on a much larger scale than today. You are the principal players in meeting this challenge. The great misunderstandings and conflicts of the past have largely been overcome. The last lingering one, which divided the city for many, many years, has been laid to rest thanks to President Barack Obama's wise decision to normalize U.S. relations with Havana, despite the persistence of widespread human rights violations in Cuba and the total absence of democracy by any imaginable definition. Many of you can't imagine what this town was like 25 years ago in this aspect. That's improvised, by the way. But disagreements remain and continue to be costly to both halves of the hemisphere. I will only mention two, because today's advanced degree graduates and the university as a whole can play an especially important role in addressing them, if not in solving them overnight. The first one is drugs. The war on drugs launched by Richard Nixon in 1971 has been a miserable failure. Miami suffered from it in the 80s, Colombia in the 90s, and Mexico has paid an exorbitant price for pursuing a senseless, bloody, and incredibly expensive war of choice since 2007. Today, the consensus in Latin America, and as importantly, in most of the United States, has shifted. The prohibitionist, punitive approach is being increasingly abandoned, and different forms of decriminalization are being adopted, from Uruguay to Mexico City, from Washington, D.C. to California. You can make a major contribution in consummating this change of paradigm in the U.S. and in Latin America. Some of you will favor legalization, others will not. Both attitudes are equally respectable. But few still believe that the war on drugs across the region and the world make any sense at all. Miami and you are a crossroads for this debate. It should be held here as much as anywhere else. Secondly, corruption is Latin America's bane since time immemorial. We have never known exactly what to do about it. But now, in Guatemala and Brazil, in Honduras and Argentina, in Mexico and Chile, countries transformed by economic growth into middle-class societies are no longer as tolerant as before. People take to the streets, sign petitions, and vote out governments over corruption as never before. But a direct attack on corruption in Latin America cannot be undertaken without support and information from the United States. Miami has always played a central role in this regard, and it is called upon today to exercise more influence than ever before. You can be message bearers, enforcers, influencers, whistleblowers, and go-betweens like no others can. You know Latin Americans, and we know you like no one else does. Corruption in Latin America will not diminish if everyday citizens, judges, the media, officials, and activists do not take to the streets or do their job. But neither will it vanish without full-throttled international cooperation and U.S. involvement in particular. Miami can and should be the vanguard of that cooperation for the very reasons that have made this city and its foremost university what many call the capital of Latin America. But there is perhaps a more important task before you today, a challenge that is emerging from the way the 2016 presidential campaign is shaping up in the United States. This contest can be one of the nastiest, most conflictive, and painful campaigns in recent years, both for Americans of Hispanic origin and heritage, as well as for the inhabitants of much of Latin America, where that origin is located and where that heritage springs from. There is no sense in being euphemistic. I am referring to the stances, rhetoric, and attitudes assumed by who is now the presumptive Republican nominee for the presidency. Donald Trump has offended millions of Mexicans, threatened millions of Central Americans, and jeopardized the integrity of hundreds of thousands of families from Latin America in the United States. with or without papers. He has ignored a simple fact. Over the past decade, legal immigration from Mexico and Central America has jumped sharply, whereas undocumented flows have dropped slightly. Part of this folly is undoubtedly election season madness and will not translate into policy, whoever wins. But the damage has already been done, in part, and will grow and intensify through November. You cannot avoid it, nor repair it, nor can I dare to state how I would vote if I were an American citizen. Sort of. But there is a great deal this graduating class can do in summer and fall, and once we all move on and the nightmare recedes. Again, the metaphor of the bridge can help. Citizens of the United States, Latinos or not, but especially if they come from communities and organizations with large Hispanic populations, must explain to their compatriots, especially where they may be sensitive to the racist, xenophobic messages sprouting from the campaign, that those messages are lies, are hateful, and are highly noxious for U.S. relations with its neighbors, for the type of peaceful and productive and prosperous partnership that everyone desires. Latinos can say what we foreign nationals from Latin America cannot, or at least not easily. And graduates from prestigious universities with broad, collegial, harmonious relations among all its diverse members are an example of how this Republican's vision and distortions have no connection to reality, to life in the United States, in the Hispanic community, and in Latin America. But you can also be a bridge in the other direction, reassuring your friends, your relatives, your colleagues in the region that the conservative candidate does not represent all Americans, that your fellow students, professors, co-workers, and friends from all walks of life have no truck with Trump. Not only is the United States much better than this candidate, Miami, its university, and its marvelous graduates of 2016 are the best proof of this. Gracias.